Welcome to Essay in a Rap Education Knowledge, placing the world on the map. The world made it countries, nations, people, but not everyone. All countries are equal. In the first world, people get education for free, take it for granted, trying to be an absentee. Got plenty of food, stocking supermarket shelves, being well fed, caring for no one but themselves. Government is there, providing the goods, infrastructure, services, amenity. The first world privilege helps both identities. But over the world, this ain't always the case. Citizens don't always feel trust in their state. Dying of famine, drought, hunger, disease, got no access to education, let alone degrees. Governments don't always care for their people because democracy ain't necessarily a steeple to the way their country is governed. Main aim is to keep corruption covered. So today's question is, how do we, as the first world, best help fight inequality? Historically, we'll look at the Marshall Plan and see how foreign aid became the lend in hand. Also take a look at NGOs and see whether all this help presupposes the idea of neoliberalism or whether any help at all ought to be heroistic. First, let's take a look at the way globalization has turned the world into mass socialization. The news, the UN, the internet. We stay informed through our television set. We know what's going on the other side of the world. How on a global scale are unfurled. World is divided on a scale of extremes, plus also being divided into ideological teams. Parts of the poor in third world countries, politically correct in developing countries. These are countries where life is unstable with billions of people, no food on the table, yet not everybody in developed nations whine and die. 15% of Americans live beneath the poverty line. Yet America's GDP sits at 16.8 trillion, where Zimbabwe sits at nearly 12.8 million. And move on to Botswana. All Kazakhstan and their GDP can be measured in the thousands. Amount of money a country has can determine quality of life, and having enough can lead to quite a bit of strife. Look at Germany after the First World War. Some say financial pressure is what tore Germany apart, leading to the election of Hitler, which in turn led to boom of the gas gooder. See the financial bust, dictatorship kaboom, as well as potential for communistic doom. A second world war they don't want history to repeat, and another war would make the world obsolete. The countries in Europe were ruined, destroyed. All the citizens were basically unemployed. This led to the conceptualization of the Marshall Plan to keep away the negative influence of Starland. Americans said they'd let countries money as long as they didn't spend it all in a hurry. Had to be invested, controlled, specifically spent, otherwise the money would continue to be lent. 60% had to be spent on infrastructure, anything that would help manufacture jobs so people would have things to do and to prevent the rise of the communist flag too. Because there are so many conditions attached, not all countries onto the money latch. Countries which were in the Soviet Union opted against taking the contribution. Hence the idea of foreign aid was born. Money from rich countries to lesser was shorn. 1917, the world's richest countries agreed to donate 0.7% of their GNI. This money was to go towards development, but development which would be effective, trying to reach the Millennium Goals and not just for certain governments to control. Quite rarely are no conditions attached, and in these conditions, plans are hatched. Often developed countries use the ring of affluence to try and instigate some type of influence over certain countries' policies, but not enough so that they're in control, you see. For countries to receive money from foreign aid, they had to agree to certain aspects of trade, such as importing certain products, goods, ways of life. They gotta put down the metaphoric knife because the monies go through official measures. Government to government between the country's treasuries, developed countries feel hesitant to give money to countries where it wouldn't be well spent. Issue with this is that some of what's worth living dictatorships are under the influence of corrupt governments. These are the people who need the aid because the harms they face can't be fixed by band-aid. They got limited access to jobs or work, education is lacking, and diseases lurk. Yet aid is given according to political association dependent upon government facilitation. Despite the fact that DRC is the poorest with the people living high, leave malnourished, the U.S. still gives most of the aid to Iraq, leaving us standing here with a question mark over whether aid is going where it's really needed, or just where America can lead unimpeded. Australia as well views it to their own end, most heading to PNG to think in foreign Manus Island, but also remember Australia's cutting foreign aid, claiming they needed it to be downgraded to make sure everyday Australians aren't harmed by the mass budget debt. A chorus for alarm. So what other options do we have to tackle inequality? What else can we do to make it a priority? But NGOs play a massive role. Non-government organization manage some form of control. An NGO is a non-profit citizens group, got valid purpose, and fix it they true. They're not associated with government. Instead, they are relatively independent. They operate in a variety of areas, from Human Rights Watch to Doctors Without Borders, allows for specialization of skills, a focus on an area, such as providing meals. It means anyone organizing don't fix everything. They focus on one problem and end up altering that specific wrong, and maybe perhaps a life be prolonged. To be an effective NGO, they must be seen as independent, able to have a way to deliver the system they offer, must also be responsible to their donors, yet operating for the best of their receivers. NGOs may face some resistance from hostile governments or rebel groups in the field, but they at least able to negotiate their way through, which is more than any official government could do. They're able to get the people who need the help most and see firsthand the need to diagnose. In this way, they are better than the government, as they're able to get around political requirements. They're also able to work with people on the ground, see what communities would like to have around, such as bringing local jobs, clean water, education, bringing equipment which is needed for sanitation. Yet not all NGOs have good associations, and not all good work is revealed in evaluation. Some NGOs fail to be legitimate, and some happen to be antagonistic. Some go into countries thinking they know best and they're the saviors of the oppressed. That is, they provide types of help which is not needed, such as preaching the only out through the help of Jesus. Then you got NGOs which fail because they lack transparency, help that give us not see equality. Some types of help are difficult to measure, like extensions of harvest or immunization endeavors. In the end, what Western investments best? What would be better if we just did less? Be it the conditions attached by the government or the companies who merely donate garments. There seems to be a disconnect between what Canadians want and what is actually said. That's not to say foreign aid ain't right or our foreign aid based to deflate. It's that we should question how we contribute, and if it ain't needed, redistribute. Focus should be less on giving material supplies, instead focus on distributing wealth of the mind. Most NGOs have their right conceptualization. They merely the neo-imperialization, because ultimately all forms of aid from the West have been biased towards an ideologically consistent alliance. But what their bias is more likely to be less than the government, even when they're trying their best. So continue to put pressure on governments to consume foreign aid, but when donating, find legit NGOs to be paid. Check that all their resources are well spent and their commitment is in alignment with what the community they're working with wants. They don't have an attitude of nonchalance, because ultimately distribution wealth is skewed, but money is needed for all to get food. So only by recognizing the need to redistribute do we recognize the need for ourselves to contribute. Remember your privilege for living in a wealthy country. It's purely luck that you're not continually hungry, that you have an education, a home, a computer, that you have the ability to plan for the future. So next time you're called on to donate, or someone is complaining about the welfare state, I hope you don't hold your fists closed tight. I bid you well and bid you good night.